And just some quick introductions. I'm Kevin Launderholm, AVP of Operations and Technology here at LHPH Capital. And I'm going to be moderating this session on managing lease returns, best practices, repos, and recycling inventory. Up on stage with me are our dealer panelists. We have Dustin Kerr, president from Barton Creek Auto Credit, John Cowboy Kirkland, general manager from Marcosian Auto, and next to him on the end we have Stan Sumrall, president of New Way Auto and Southeast Autoplex. So thank you very much for joining us this year. So I'll do a brief introduction to this session, and then we can just get to know these guys a little bit better. So I was looking over my slides from last year for a panel that we had on underwriting your leases, and I found this quote from Scott Carlson, founder of AutoZoom. He states, "The name of the game in this business is having the highest amount of active paying customers relative to fixed overhead." Then I reviewed the most recent Manheim Used Vehicle Value Index that was just sent out, showing used vehicle prices are up by 8.4% year over year. Prices definitely do not seem to be fixed. And the same goes for our consumers. As you've probably seen in the news and felt in your wallets, the consumer price index is also up 8.3% year over year. So cars have become way more expensive since the last time we saw you at the summit last year. Consumers are having to pay way more for everything across the board: food, gas, energy, just living in general. So dealers, consumers, we've all been feeling the really high post-pandemic prices. So not much seems to be fixed. Everything seems to be variable over the past 12 months. And that's with inflation just climbing. So the question is, how do our dealers manage their business while the variables are constantly changing? So in this dealer panel, we'll focus on the process of managing a lease return. So that would be a leased vehicle that returns to the dealership. And we hope to cover best practices with repossessions, vehicle valuations in a changing economy in the market, and then the decision, do you recondition a vehicle, lease it to a new customer, or do you make the decision to sell it at auction instead of keeping it in the portfolio? So let's get to know you guys a little better. Dustin, we could start with you. If you could just go over maybe your dealership location, number of accounts, the DMS provider that you have, as well as just a general breakdown of your operation, LHPH, BHPH, or retail.
Sure. Yeah, Dustin Kerr, we have 3 locations, all relatively small, one in Oklahoma City, one in Northwest Arkansas, Rogers, Arkansas, and then one just south of Austin, Texas, in Kyle, Texas. AMS, Automaster Systems, is our DMS provider. I've used them for 20 plus years, even before being with LHPH. We are a mix of retail and leasing, no buy here, pay here. All of our dealer-controlled financing is leases. We eventually would like to do far more leasing and far less retail, but we still manage both at this point. We do not have recon centers. One of our stores, just from a room perspective, we don't have a shop at any of our locations. They're all small dealerships. In Austin, Texas, we have one I would call C mechanic. In Rogers, Arkansas, we have a mobile mechanic that does most of our work, and then we outsource almost everything.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then Cowboy, how about you? Dealership locations, number of accounts, DMS provider, then your general operation, LHPH, BHPH, or retail?
We got 5 locations in the Salt Lake City area, 4,200 accounts. Our DMS is Deal Pack, and we do probably a 90-10 split now of retail conventional loans through banks, Capital One, what have you. Everything else is lease here, pay here.
Awesome.
We are switching over to a centralized reconditioning facility right now. We're just in the process of building that out. So we're going to have one location with a spoke and hub model to help us outgrow.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then how about you, Stan? So dealership locations, number of accounts, DMS provider, and then just a general breakdown of your operation.
All right, most of my dealerships are in Mississippi. We've got 5 independents in Mississippi and 1 in Alabama. We're slightly south of 5,000 accounts on the books currently. We service, most of those vehicles as far as reconning and everything. We've got service centers in 2 of our facilities, in the process of building out a 34-bay shop, similar, the same thing basically they're doing, to where we can control more of it, because we've made the decision to keep all of our repos, and we'll talk more of that as we get into this.
Awesome. That's a great segue. So we did prepare some questions here for the dealer panelists, and then we'll also take any questions from the audience, so just feel free to raise your hand. So let's go over a scenario of a repossession. First question, who is your GPS provider, and do you have any new ideas on how to skip trace if the GPS or references don't pan out? And we can start with you, Dustin.
Yeah, so we use Pastime for our GPS. In the past, we've used Pastime and Gold Star, but I'd say over the last couple of years switched exclusively to Pastime. In all the years past has been doing this, we always use starter interrupt. We are not. We currently made that switch to just using the wireless GPS. Just we were having such an issue with, really no issue with customers tampering with the device, or not a big issue, but it was more of a mechanic issue getting it installed right. It became such a headache. I was the last one that wanted to do it too, and we finally made that switch to go to the wireless GPS. It's actually worked out pretty well. We've not seen much of a decrease in delinquencies without having the starter interrupt, and feel like obviously we have less people tampering with the device because they don't know where it's at, and new ideas on skip tracing. I really don't know that we have I'm actually finding it's less effective to call references than what it used to be. Not that we're not still getting references, we are, but that has been something that's not working as well as it used to. So we really rely on that wireless GPS and getting the vehicle quickly. If the customer's not communicating, not paying, we're probably, our leash has got smaller. Part of that's the lack of inventory. Somebody's not going to pay, we're getting it back.
Yeah, get the car back, yep.
We are not giving it as much time as we used to get that vehicle back.
Gotcha. And Cowboy, how about you?
We
GPS
have
provider?
switched over to Pastime also. We have some CalAmp devices still. We do use the starter interrupt. It's automated through deal pack at day 5. It shuts
Awesome.
the vehicle off for us. We've had a couple gals in our collection center that are very good at stalking people on Facebook, which is nice. Maybe it's a woman thing to be able to do that, but that's one way we've been able
New
to find
tactic.
some cars.
Gotcha.
Accounts.
And then Stan, how about you? Who's your GPS provider?
Same. Pastime is ours too. We use the wireless. We switched over to wireless for not necessarily not having the tech to be able to put it on. It was time, because it tied up so much time on the front side of delivering the vehicle and stuff. And the technology finally got there that we trusted it. And we let a few dealers go well before us and tested it and stuff until we felt comfortable that we'd be able to get the car. But as far, we use TLO, we use all the skip tracing companies, social media is a big one. And even we get the references, but they also use the actual references and the social media and stuff to be able to find them too, because you'd be amazed, they take pictures, and they communicate, and you usually can figure out if they're still in the same town or not. And but we still lose a percentage of them. That's just part of it.
Yep. And then sticking with you, Stan, do you charge an early termination fee, wear and tear, or over mileage fee?
We've got it in contract. Do we ever collect it? No.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. If they can't pay us on a regular payment, they're not paying the other either.
And how about you, Cowboy?
Yeah, we have an early termination fee, and we will use it when we go after people, like when we sue them and stuff like that. That's when we'll try to collect that.
Gotcha. And Dustin, do you?
Yeah,
charge?
so we have early termination fee, mileage fee. The early termination fee, we'll get a few. I guess we make it a big deal up front if they get to a spot where they can't afford the car. That's an option that they can, save their credit and pay in that. We get a few every month. We also use it on the back end when somebody's got a low balance to try to, waive that fee to convert them to a car. But we never collect on the mileage overage or the damages.
Gotcha. So now let's talk about a good paying customer. Would you ever bring that good paying customer back into the dealership early before a lease matures? How early into the lease? Say you have a 36-month lease, would you bring them back at maybe 24 months with good pay? Do you create any incentives for that next lease? And we can stick with you, Dustin.
Yeah, so it's a big part of what we do. I don't know how you could operate without trying to retain as many of those customers as possible. For us, as our ACV has changed, this has changed a little bit, but typically we don't look at a time period at $3,500. Once that lease balance gets down to $3,500, is kind of our trigger to start aggressively calling that customer. We put into our CRM, we track it with the salespeople. Are they making contact? It's a part of the manager's responsibility. And yes, we'll waive the termination fees. If they've paid us well, we will work them for all the down payment we can, but we are going to put them back into another vehicle if they've paid us well, especially if we're getting a good vehicle back that we can release.
Awesome. How about you, Cowboy?
Yeah, about 10 months or 10 payments left on the lease is when we start targeting.
Okay.
And then how they treated the previous vehicle is a big determining factor on the down payment. We'll do it with zero down on the second car if they paid us
They
good.
treat it well. Awesome. How about you, Stan?
Well, we do target them, but we're targeting them for a different reason than some of what they're saying and everything. But as all of us know, obviously the price of cars, everything has changed. And what's the least expensive inventory that I actually have? The ones they're driving. So we've strategically tried to go after those better paying customers and everything to get them to return that lease and swap them, waiving all the fees and everything, and just swap them into a newer, fresh unit, and we get that asset back at a cheaper value versus going to the auction and buying another car.
Yeah. And then what percentage of customers actually buy out or finance their residuals? Just a general, is it 10%?
I don't have that number off the top of me. We should have put that in the notes
Yeah.
somewhere.
Cowboy, do you have a good idea of how many?
If they make it to that final payment,
Yep.
they're going to be buying that car almost 95% of the time.
Huh.
Like last month, we got 2 lease returns. Like the price of the residual from 3 years ago, they have equity and they
Yeah.
know it. And they're going to keep on, you finance us or I'll be going to my credit union, I'll bring you a check.
Yeah, wow. How about you, Dustin?
Yeah, so we get a fairly low percentage that, I want to say, maybe 5% that actually, we quit refinancing the residual ourselves. We used to do that. When they get that, we would refinance it, but we don't. So they have to go to a credit union or somewhere. So it's a relatively small percentage that actually buy the lease out at the end.
Okay. So if you have the majority of the vehicles that are going to be returned leases, walk us through your process of deciding whether to send that vehicle to auction or keep the vehicle in the portfolio and release it again.
So I'll start. Ours is simple, right? Is it going to, whether it's a repo or a lease at the end? I guess our step-by-step is immediately we look to see if there's any damage insurance-wise that we can make a claim on the second the car hits the lot. From there, we're taking the low-hanging fruit. Either this is a car we definitely want to recondition and put back on the lot, or this thing is junk and let's get rid of it now. And then we kind of start working on the ones that are a little harder to decide on. And I think it always comes down to do we feel like it's going to run another note? Is this car mechanically sound to run? And the investment I'm going to have to make to recondition it compared to what I'm having to pay at the auction,
Yep.
is that a good decision? And so obviously the more of those cars we can recondition and put out, the better shape we're in. As they start getting a little more miles, we get the cars back that have 140, 150,000 miles. We don't really want to lease those. So for us, a lot of those, if they're still in good condition, we will finance through like credit acceptance, things of that, get them out of our portfolio, get all of our money. But we're looking at that. What's the reconditioning? What's the depreciation on the books? What's it going to cost us to buy that same car at the auction? And what are the chances that car is going to perform another 2 or 3 year note?
Yep. How about you, Cowboy?
We walked a lot with our service director. He's got like a photographic memory. He knows every car inside and out. Yeah, we put an engine in this one 2 months ago or what have you, and it's all repossessions with us. And I mean, if it's not got too much damage, and we have a body shop, we just can't straighten the frame yet. As soon as we can straighten the frame, it won't matter about the body damage.
Gotcha.
And We know the cars, we won't send a whole lot to auction. We just bought a 12-acre facility, and we're gonna turn it into a junkyard for parts for us to help out with that, just because the parts are so hard to get on some of these cars.
Wow. Very cool. And Stan?
Same as Cowboy.
Okay.
Junkyard, here we come, baby.
Well, I can pull up a camera and show you all the pictures of my service center, and it looks like a junkyard behind it. But the main reason is it changed the game. You know, when we couldn't find the parts, the cars are costing too much at the auction, everything we did, and we actually changed this process coming out of the last stimulus check. And we were selling so many cars per month because of stimulus. We knew we were going to get a large percentage of repos. So how do we approach that, and how are we going to cash flow it? You know, because it's going to cost tremendously more amount of money on a monthly and even weekly basis and everything to be able to cash flow these cars versus going out and buying a fresh unit and putting it through service. And we knew it was about 4 times the recon expense, you know, minimum, plus tying up our salvage cars, you know, our parts cars, because we've got to sit that money, pay them off, and sit them until we part them out. But I can tell you, rule of thumb is if it's within 750-mile radius is about how the distance we purchase cars in. If it's within that radius that we can transport it back, we're bringing it home. It doesn't matter what it is, we're bringing it home. As we all know, the cost of the parts, the transmission, the motors, the doors, and you just keep going down the list, and the availability of those. So we're going to strip them till there ain't nothing left. And same thing with reconning as far as a paint body, we do the same thing. We sub an enormous amount out to even other shops because we can't handle the amount that we've got coming through. But including Mako, I mean, we're probably 75–80% of their business in 2 of their locations.
Wow.
Just pull up and it looks like our parking lot, all of our tags.
And it sounds like we have the answer to this next question, but as the owner of the vehicle, do you see the risk being lower to release or repossession versus paying those inflated prices for new inventory?
No, I'll take this one.
Yeah, go
This is a
for it.
big one with me. I looked at it, you know, and I'm sure they're going to reiterate the same thing and stuff. As I looked at it and I said, well, you know, I can go pay the other money at the auction, you know, and pay the inflated price or the $2,000 that they're bringing over the inflated price at the auction for the car. And we can lay that money off on LHPH with him. But guess who's taking the risk? I am. The customer's going to pay the same, if not worse, in a down economy than they did before. Do I want to have an extra $4,000 a copy in a fresh unit in the street on this customer with my guarantee on it? And I made the decision that we're not doing that. You know, I'm going to have this amount of money in the street, not this amount of money in the street on the same customer. I'm going to have some of my cash tied up in between that, but I'm not going to pay. Well, I'll put it this way. We went from buying, you know, 400 or 500 cars a month to now we're buying 40 or 50 cars a month because we've got enough recycling and everything to be able to keep up with the demand. And the risk is tremendously less. Our equities spread is much greater. Takes a lot of cash to do it, but I sleep a lot better at night knowing that my name's on that paper.
Yep. And then next question, so now you've decided to keep that vehicle. Can you just walk us through exactly how do you reprice that vehicle? How long does that process take? And then do you make any changes in that lease structure after a repossession? Maybe like a shorter term or adjusting the residual? We can keep with you, Stan. Yeah.
Then you can answer that other question in just a minute. Let me go ahead and answer this. Is we bring them back in, and let's talk about, say, 18 purchasers, because I have so many of them on the books. We basically bring that vehicle back in and everything, and today they're $14,995, not $12,995, when it was in the pandemic when they were cheaper. We price it according to market, but I also put policies in place because we know our managers and our salespeople as well as we do, and we all know them, they're all that way, is we don't allow them to sell that vehicle to a cash customer and or finance to another lender. If it is a lease vehicle, it will always be a lease vehicle until I send it to the scrapyard.
Wow.
And it eliminated me having to deal with pricing of cars and all of this type stuff, because at the end of the day, It's our asset, you know, and salespeople, obviously, they wasn't real happy about it, you know, but they got over it, and we moved on.
And how about you, Cowboy?
We just price it to the market value.
Gotcha.
I mean, when we bring them back in, we'll assess the asset. If there's been damage on it, we're going to try to get an insurance claim, and hopefully they had insurance.
Gotcha.
And that's one of the big, fingers crossed that it's still active policy.
Yeah, and do you ever adjust?
They paid me for 30 days, so hopefully they paid their insurance.
Yeah, and do you adjust term on that next?
We'll run it at 36 months.
36.
Or sometimes they'll drop it down to 30 just to try to keep the payments up.
Gotcha.
I mean, we want to make sure the payments are going to be in line with what the customer can afford, but also we want to be at the higher end of what they can afford
Gotcha.
for us payment-wise.
And how about you, Dustin?
Yeah, exactly the same. We price everything to market. You know, we do a lot of financing through credit acceptance, so we price everything at credit acceptance pricing. So if it does end up being a deal that'll make a good profit, even though I kind of feel the same as Stan. I want it to be a lease car forever, but if it's a deal that'll work, it's a good deal, and we'll take that. But yeah, we price it to market, and you know, same term. I mean, we'll cut the term a little bit as the car gets a little older, but for the most part, it's the same term. We don't change that a whole lot.
Yep. And then I did see we had a question over here.
So quick, clarify that. When you guys are talking about price, but what about cost? When you get a car back, will you book it in rough if it's rough?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and if it's clean, you'll book it in clean?
Book it in clean. If there's damage on it, we're going to have our body shop guy go run through that car and say, you're going to need $2,000 worth of damage. Try to give me an estimate so I can turn that into the insurance company and get me a check for $2,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your cost is affected, and
Yes.
the price that it.
That's why with the sales managers, when they're saying that, because you bring it in such a cheaper price, and if the cost doesn't go up, they're like, oh man, we can make it a $4,000 deal on this $10,000 car, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
But it's worth 14.
Yeah, I'm like, that ain't happening. Like, we all have stock places, and so you can't do a retail deal on a 10,000 or less car.
The reason that I put the policy in place is we bring it back in, whatever the residual value is, and deal package keeping up with it and stuff, that's what it comes back in on ours, because it eliminated me, not the managers, it eliminated for me not having to continually go in and book a car back in at a particular cost to control the manager. I just changed the policy and just said, you can't do anything to release it, and that solved it.
We had a clerical girl that do it for us, so the managers have no control over what they're bringing it back in for. We took it completely out of their hands, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we're about the same. We'll put it in at the higher of the actual ACV or the depreciated value, whatever, you know, again, a stopgap to somebody, you know, taking a big deal that we're actually taking a loss on.
Exactly.
We had another question here, yeah?
So when we do our buy here, pay here's, and we say we sell a vehicle for $10,000, we refill it, resell it, and make more than what that $10,000 buy here, pay here was, technically the customer can come after us for that extra money because it was their contract. Is it different with leasing?
Yes, we own that asset, the customer don't.
So you can't just resell it for what it was at that time?
Yeah. It's one of the big advantages. I mean, there's a lot, but it is one of the primary things that we love about and I've done both, and I could argue, you know, both sides of whether buy here, pay here, or lease here, pay here, but that is one of the big advantages.
Okay.
Gentleman over there.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
What's your average recon spend on those cars that you've repoed and put back on the road?
$2,400 for us on the repos.
How much?
$2,400. So we spend reconditioning. I mean, we make them brand new. We'll make a 180,000 mile Nissan Versa. Look like it just came off the factory line.
I don't know how he's doing it that cheap, mine's higher.
But on a fresh purchase, the reason why I love the repos is my shop thinks that they're pushers. Back in the day, these fresh purchases we bring in from the auction, Hertz and that, they were called pushers. My repos are now the pushers. Our techs love the repos. They know the car's inside and out, and versus the fresh inventory that you buy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you-
Wait a
yep.
minute, let's get.
Go ahead, Corey.
So it seems like the consensus is everybody's just recycling repo. So concerned with, obviously you're saying you're making a 180,000 mile Versa, you know, new. So concerned with the mileage creeping up in your entire portfolio.
I've got a couple trucks with 300,000 on them, and I'm putting them back out again.
So hey, that 180,000 mile Versa.
She's looking
goes
pretty.
out, customers in paying, you're gonna
She's shining.
motor transmission in that and continue to warranty that down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a couple guys that can rebuild the Nissan transmissions now.
Sure.
So it's,
Yes.
and they figure out the part numbers and we just have them on stock.
Are you building in a service contract into all these deals or some of them, or is that which way do you go with that?
We warranty for the life of the contract. So if they're
Personally
30,
or through a third party?
in-house.
In-house.
In-house. No, we do have a service contract company and everything, but we're carrying it in-house. We're pricing it in the car price. And they have to bring it back to us unless you're in Washington State or wherever, and then we deal and negotiate to get a wholesale price. But we fix it because it's our asset. It's not the customers. We're basically just covering our own tail in reality. That's our car.
Any other questions?
Stan, is that a price ad or a payment
There's price. There's price.
And then what has been your biggest challenge with managing lease returns over the past years? I think we've kind of touched on it, but any real solutions to fixing that challenge? Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, so ours is, we outsource most everything, so, this is the biggest headache to deal with daily, is getting cars turned, getting them through the shops. Of course, we've had a little bit of a part shortage, so that has not helped anything either, but I don't have, hopefully you guys can give us some solutions, because it is, every day piling cars up, staying on the shops, finding, other shops that can help outsource stuff. It's the biggest part of it, of what we do on a daily basis.
Yep. Do you have all the
Space.
answers, Cowboy?
No, it's space. It's always been space for us.
Yep.
Our service director, I think for the last 10 years, has just complained about space. I need more space. I need more space. We build a bigger building, more space. I'm like, dude, stop with the space. So we bought him 12 acres. I'm like, if I hear anything about space, I'm running over in the parking lot. But we've had to outsource cars to like Larry H. Miller's. Our truckers now, our transport companies will bring cars and just dump a whole load in another dealership to get recon for us. We've had to go
Wow.
out and find other recon shops while we're building our own.
Wow.
Trying
Yeah,
to get
Stan.
cars to the front line.
Same with us. We've got our 3 shops that we do internally and stuff, and we sub out not only in the same town that we've got our shops in, we sub out for our other stores too. Everything from the independent to the franchise stores, and just negotiate, a fair price to be able to get it out. Because we look at it now, the stuff that's obviously more major repairs and all of that stuff, we bring in-house. To where we can control it, to where we can pull parts and do all that stuff. But the lighter recon stuff, we sub, and it's really the gravy in reality. If you look at a tech's perspective, that's the gravy, that's the easy money for them. But I need the car, out of the shop as quickly as we can get out of the shop. And we're still not doing a good job at it. We just, we're fixing to build, we're in the process of getting the permitting and everything else for a 34-bay shop, and it still won't be big enough.
Wow.
Just absolutely won't be big enough. Which is a good problem, I guess, on one
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
Yep. Any questions? And then, yeah, go ahead, George.
Now that you guys have your own salvage yards, are you trying to buy, put your inventory in generic things so that you match it with your parts and all that? Or are you still buying different vehicles?
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, we've always bought most of the same like vehicles, just different year models and different miles. So it's always that bread and butter mom and pop vehicle, the Versas, the Altimas, you can just keep going down the list. But, we do get that oddball piece every once in a while where it's a Fiat or whatever it is, and we'd call that piece of junk, would be a better way to put that. But it'll never run the note, Yeah, don't sell a Fiat. It won't work out well for you. Or you can, just give it the credit acceptance like he was talking about. Don't put it on your own books.
So scaling from the beginning, if you can remember, maybe it's the same now, what's the sweet spot of the price that you're selling the car at for the consumer, for the right price point, cash flow and all that? Are you in the 20,000 range typically, or 15?
We're at 14.9 average now. We were 12.9 prior to the pandemic, and we've creeped up because obviously the value of the dollar is less. They're still buying the same car, they're just paying more for it.
Sold 15 and under?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How
We're
about you?
exactly the same. but
Same
we're-
here, yeah. If I can be under 15K, that's ideal. You start getting up over that, it's just, it gets scary.
And so from the get-go, you want to be yourself. If you're selling for 15, you want to be in 10K range number.
That's a little more than that.
On the leasing, I have a higher money factor. I'm not sure what your guys' money factor is. I know I have a higher money factor so that I can advertise price and be competitive price-wise, plus the acquisition fee on there too with the leasing. So, I mean, there's some other fees that we have.
We're very
So
similar
the
to
price
that.
for y'all is totally different, right? Like you're saying 15K, obviously, that way your markup's a lot different than Stan's markup.
Yep.
Yeah, completely
I think it's
different.
more payment oriented.
Exactly. Can they afford it?
Markup, right?
Yes, try to keep under 400 a month.
I'm sorry, what's that?
400 a month.
Keep it under
Is
400 a
in
month.
our markets. You know, some of the markets are obviously higher than that.
I'm about five. Yeah,
Right.
I'm at 500.
Right,
Under
incomes are
500.
higher and everything else, but, you know, with our folks, especially a lot of them in Mississippi working at McDonald's and all the other places, they're not making $10, $11 an hour. They can't afford 500 a month,
So
you know.
most of these are used cars, and what's the average mileage you're looking at the cars when you guys first acquire them, when you first put them out the first time?
60, 65, in that range.
Yeah, same for
Yeah,
us.
same,
We try-
yeah.
It's went up a little bit as cars have been a little
Yeah,
harder
it
to, acquire the last couple of years, but pre-pandemic, we wanted to be in that, certainly under 80 was
The
kind of
rental
our
rockets
target.
type deal.
The sweet spot is where the price point used to be when we were buying a lot from the auctions and the fleet companies and everything else, is buying the newer vehicle that has just come out of factory warranty. Because a lot of the new car dealers, they do now, but they wasn't. You know, if it wasn't still under factory warranty, they wasn't competing with me against, with hers and everybody else. They wanted the stuff under factory warranty, which crap, they're buying stuff with 150,000 miles on it now. I mean, it's crazy.
Yep. Any other questions?
Well, with the factory warranty, our service director has been able to get, see, on Wednesday, he's all, he got 5 motors covered from Hyundai. He's all at 10 grand a pop. And he's all, just because they're not in our name anymore than the customer's name, he's all, we're running them through the customer's name, and Hyundai's covering these things with 110,000 miles. I'm like,
Wow.
dude, whatever you did, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
We're doing that too. The thing that y'all, and you need to factor in is the time, because you're going to pay it off LHPH before you get it out of the shop,
Yep.
at least in my market, because we're 6-8 months out of getting them. They're covered. But I can tell you, we've got every Hyundai and Kia store slammed with motor jobs from us in probably 100, 150-mile radius,
Wow.
literally.
Yep.
I mean,
That's nice.
I've got more inventory there than they do,
Jeez.
no doubt.
And then Cowboy, when we were brainstorming questions, you had a question maybe for the audience and also dealers up here. Just dealing with those impound companies in Utah, they say every vehicle is running just to be able to collect their money. So as a question for the audience, how do you confirm that the vehicle isn't actually totaled with these impound lots? Are there any ideas on that? Go ahead, Stan. Yeah.
I'll take it. I can tell you from us, we get the same thing. We'll get it at auctions. It's at, say, Odessa, wherever. It really doesn't matter where it's at and everything. They immediately, it hadn't got a key cut for it, they immediately want to say it's not running and put it in TRA lane. Because we're going to get a higher sales percentage because we're going to get a low floor. We're going to gig it hard on the CR. And we just try to pull everything, and if we don't, we have them actually go, not only get the keys and everything else, prove to me it's running, but when you go to the salvage yards and stuff, we send an actual person there. Whether it's from the actual repossession company, because we usually get pretty decent information from them, unless it's the tow company that it's their own tow company, and they was in an accident on the side of the road and
That's what
everything.
we're running into, the ones in the accident on
And
the side
that's
of
where
the
you
road.
get hit, and we say, well, we want pictures of the whole thing, and they say they won't, then we call an independent adjuster. They say, well, we've got our own insurance, we're gonna send an independent adjuster to go look at it. And it costs, but it saves us a lot,
Saves you,
because
yep.
they're
Does the independent adjuster have some type of badge or anything like that? You got a copy of that badge?
Well, I don't know, we might. I could probably get that. I just get my son's badge, he can DA
That's all I
agent.
need right there.
Yeah, but I can tell you that most of them are just trying to steal your car. sad as I hate to say that, they're trying to get your car for an inexpensive amount of money, and it's $1,200 tow bill.
We paid like $1,200, $2,400, and then we go in there and the whole front end's just, they hit the wall, they hit the cement
Oh, yeah.
wall at like 120. They were,
But it's worth spending $150, $175 for an independent adjuster to go look at
oh
it.
yeah, it's, I was thinking drones.
No,
Get
they're
some
all,
guy to fly a drone.
drone over there.
Do some
these
Photoshop.
guys are all over the country, you can get them.
High tech.
Requiring common collision on all these?
Yeah.
We do. Yep. And we got a couple minutes left, so maybe we'll take a couple more questions if anybody, any final questions? Yeah.
When do we get over saying that we're thinking about the past and pre-pandemic? I mean, all of our inventory has split. We're 3 years beyond the pandemic now. At what point do we accept the reality of this is the new reality and quit thinking about, well, what we used to do was this, what we used to do was that, and start changing our metrics to base our business model on where we are now? And in particular, I like, it resonates hearing recycling the repos, but you're at the expense of your entire portfolio aging out on you. And at what point is there a responsibility to keep that portfolio new so that you, I mean, where do we make our money in leasing is in releasing vehicles and recycling the asset. Are you subjecting yourself to a depreciating asset to the point of your whole portfolio where if the market doesn't flip back, you're going to find yourself in a tough spot because you don't have that opportunity to continue to release vehicles? So are you, I guess my question would be, are you paying attention to the need to build a newer portfolio you said, I don't know if I'm making sense, but.
Well,
We look at the cost at the auction versus what we're going to be in it now a lot, Joe.
Yeah, I know you are.
So
I'm asking more to
yeah.
stand. I'm better at more to stand because I respect you as a dealer and you've always been kind of a pinnacle of the dealer group. But I wonder how much emphasis
That's
are you
scary, by the
putting
way.
on keeping that portfolio new enough so that you can take advantage of the release because that's where we make our money.
I'll say that we watch it on a daily, monthly basis, and it's a daily discussion, because I understand what you're saying, that we don't want to have all 180,000 mile vehicles left in our portfolio 12 months from now, and then it hits us at the back of the head. But we're watching, we're still putting fresh units in, don't get me wrong. It's just percentage-wise, most of them are repos.
And 40 or 50 auction purchases a month on 5,000 accounts, that's a very low percentage.
Oh, it is. It's an extremely low percentage, but and we're buying time in reality and stuff. Now, I'm not saying 4 months from now, 5 months from now, that number completely flips back the other direction. I don't think it is, because I don't think the inventory availability is going to be there and the market come down to a reasonable level that I feel comfortable to put my name on the bottom line for that paper. But it's one of those, everyday, monthly, quarterly, looks to understand the risk and return of what we're looking at and to where we don't sell our, we're going to add stores and add portfolio. And even Chad and I has had this conversation, the only opportunity that we've got to literally grow at this point is we've got to add stores. We've got to, because we've got to put fresh blood and fresh numbers, out on the books. And that's the only way we're going to be able to do it. But I understand what you're saying, and I don't know that I have a clear answer. It is the new world we're living in. But I don't think today's world that we're living in is going to be the same 6 months from now. It's still changing, and I don't know where we're going to land at.
So
We ain't hit the bottom yet.
So your concern potentially is you're buying these cars at these values now that are eventually going to fall down, so you'd rather recycle and not be high in all your new cars.
Right.
But when you're talking about new purchases, you're not buying 180,000.
No.
You're buying 60, 80.
Right,
You like those
and 90.
miles, but you're recycling because you're concerned that my portfolio is going to be overvalued when the price.
Yeah, if the
He's
price.
saying, is this just, are they not going to fall?
Yeah, that's kind of, as a follow-up, what I'm trying to.
I don't think any of us know.
Yeah, right.
I've been here for the last 5 years, over 12 to 18 months from the inventory crunch softening. 60 months later, we're still here in 12 to 18 months. It's going to start to. And my struggle I'm finding is teaching my buyers, quit buying the Hyundai Sonata, quit buying the Nissan Versa. that every single CVT transmission will go, or every single GDI engine is going to go bad. Go pay $3,000 over for the Toyota Camry and get a good car, one that I can flip 3 or 4 times. And that's, I think that's one of my questions I'm getting at is, when do we accept that this is our reality? And that the 12 to 18 months we've been hearing for the last 60 months, it's still a farce. It's not going to happen. This is I don't foresee franchise dealers changing their model to where they have 500 cars on the new car lot and undercutting each other on prices. They figured out supply and demand over this pandemic, and I think that we continue to keep the supply limited so that they can make profit on the front end. And I don't see this market changing for another maybe 5. I mean, maybe we get this severe recession and it changes, but I don't see anything in the immediate 6 months, 12-month future that's going to change the market. So I guess, and I'm not trying to directly challenge you, but would we not rather buy that Toyota Camry that's going to turn 4 notes and pay $5,000 over book for it versus the Nissan Versa that might turn 1.5 notes and I might put a transmission in it for $3,000?
If we're purchasing them, you're exactly right. Of course you would. But we've got enough repossessions, no different than they do, to be able to recycle them for at least another 3 or 4 years out, in my opinion, at minimum that far out. And all we're doing is we're buying time to see if the market's going to turn.
Yep.
You know,
And
because
we're the opposite. We don't have the maintenance facilities that you guys do, so we're having to do what that car is starting to get aged. I don't have the confidence to be able to recondition it and keep it on the road. So every day we're concerned about that, putting newer, lower mileage cars on and get rid of that higher mileage stuff on the back end because we don't have the infrastructure to be able to turn that car. If I was in their spot, I probably would. But
I would say this, and I'm not saying we're right, you're wrong. I don't think there's a right and wrong way, either way you go. It's just how you want to run your business. What I would suggest is do a mixture of both at the highest percentage you can do it. You know, and we've got enough because we started buying extra, and then when we started buying extra, well, guess what? Our repossessions just kept sitting on the back line. You know, so then I started shrinking that number to try to manage the days to force them to put those units back out on the street.
Part of keeping up with your portfolio, do you look at the sales per month? How many of them are first generation versus releases as a percentage?
Yes, every month.
What numbers do y'all read?
60% is fresh purchases and 40% are recycled right now. And
Ours-
it's been just slowly moving to, I see it going to 50-50 here in probably 6 months.
Ours is higher. Ours is probably 70-30, if not slightly higher than that.
First generation?
Huh?
70% will be first generation or 70% will be release?
A release. Release is that high. Chad was going to speak a number.
Yeah, so it used to be 70-30, now you're probably 46. I mean, it's the numbers.
Yeah, it's completely flipped, which is the direction he's headed.
Any other last questions here before? Yep.
Yeah, so we're looking at this, a smaller dealership getting started. So my questions are pretty basic, but what's the monthly cash flow that you're trying to make on that note as well between what you're paying this company and what you're putting in your pocket? Is there an average there that you're shooting for, 150, 250 a month? You know,
Oh, we could dream about that number. No, it ain't that. 250, no. Yeah.
that's why I'm asking.
I'd be on an island somewhere right now if it was 250. Oh, no.
Expected as you're not really even focused on that number, or?
We're not right now, no, because the reason is we used to look at that and we said, well, we need a certain spread, to be able to cover. And now, because we're recycling so many of them, everything, our notes down here and their notes up here. So that is increasing, but it's still the same asset. So
I think you write down $100 spread.
$100 spread.
minimum.
Minimum spread to cover your overhead. And we were with LHPH level to death, but that's where you need to be. And if you get below that $100 spread, it's not sustainable.
He can help you a lot with that, by the way.
Yeah. Excellent.
He can lay that level out everything for you. He looks at it probably harder than all of us.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for your time up here, and we'll check back in with you in 2023 at the LHPH Summit.